Rory Vaden, this has been a long time coming. I've been wanting to interview you for a long time. As we were just talking, I first got exposed to you and your work. We were saying maybe between 8 and 10 years ago in Canton, Ohio. You were sharing a stage with one of my heroes in life, John Maxwell, and loved your presentation. And so started following you from then on. And we just mentioned that, not too many episodes again, interviewed your wife and several of your clients. So very excited. And, for those who may not know you, I'll just, give a little insight. You are a Hall of Fame leadership speaker and a New York Times, boom, and a New York Times bestselling author and so many other things. Give us a little background into your journey to becoming those things.
Well, I think I've always been fascinated, Doug, with what creates successful people and what I call ultra performance. Like, how do you become in the top 1%ers? And that I think has led me on a journey to really where I would describe my expertise as the psychology of influence. So I describe or define influence as the ability to move people to action, which includes yourself. And so I was just looking at about to roll out my brand new website, and we're rolling out something called the 4 levels of influence. And level 1 is influencing yourself, which is what my early work was about. Take the stairs, the psychology of, was like overcoming procrastination, improving self-discipline. So that was when you first met me. And then level 2 influence is the ability to influence another person, which is sales would be a common term for that, right? Is how do you, communicate persuasively? And my wife, AJ, and I have built an 8-figure sales training company over 12 years. We sold that in 2018.
Wow.
And then level 3 influence is influencing a group of people, which I would call leadership, which is what my college degree was in. And then obviously as an entrepreneur, we've now had five multi-million-dollar businesses that we have started. Brand Builders Group is our 5th one and likely to become our 2nd 8-figure company here real soon. And then level 4 influence is influencing a community. So influencing a group of people. This is like creating a movement. And so that's what Brand Builders Group really focuses on the most, is helping people to become more well-known and make more, we say to build and monetize their personal brand. But, a lot of our clients are people who are authors and speakers, Ed Milet, Lewis Howes, John Gordon, Tom and Lisa Bilyeu, Peter Diamandis, Amy Porterfield, people like this that are Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher was, a project we just worked with him to help him hit the New York Times. And so those are the most, people know us because of those kinds of clients, but that's like 5% of our clients. Most of our clients are more aspiring as experts, coaches, speakers, authors, or professional service providers, or they're executives at a company or entrepreneurs, but they're people who are interested in true, global influence or influencing or making a movement or influencing a community. So that's kind of what my journey has been in my own life, which also sort of represents the arc of my career and sort of how I study and organize things in my brain anyways.
Wow. So, a lot of our listeners, same thing, they aspire to build a brand, they aspire to become influencers, a leader of leaders. Walk us through kind of a high level of the process you take people through, whether they come in at level 1 or maybe they're coming in at level 2. How can someone actually start to focus intentionally on building their own personal brand where they can actually multiply their influence and get into those higher levels?
Yeah. So I think a lot of this conversation for me really starts with understanding what personal branding is and really what personal branding isn't. When people hear the phrase personal brand, or they go, oh, Brand Builders Group is a personal brand strategy firm, sometimes they immediately go, oh, they do websites, or they do logos, or they manage social media. And they think of that word personal branding. People think there's a massive misconception, which is that it's like, oh, it's your TikTok videos and it's your colors and it's your fonts. And it's like, all of these technical things or, social media related things. And that's a really low perception of it and a big misunderstanding that costs them a lot of money. And so the way that we define your personal brand is that personal branding is simply the digitization of your reputation. the digitization of your reputation. And so there's a lot of leaders, like the people you talk about, Doug, probably people listening to this show, who they have a great reputation, right? They've built a life around making a difference, being a person of substance, having deep expertise, providing real value in the world. But then they think of like some of the modern tools of podcasting, maybe, or social media, or funnels, or ads, or they think of it as like vain, or maybe it's like too techie, or I don't like it, or I don't understand it. And so the issue is they actually don't have as much influence as a lot of people who have a much lower level of expertise with much less experience, who have delivered less value and less results in the world, but who have a bigger online reach. And it's actually a really unfortunate, we would call it an unfortunate way that the world is working, because there's something that we use called the reputation formula. So the reputation formula says that reputation is simply your results times your reach. Results times reach equals reputation. So a lot of our clients, I listed off some of the bigger ones who have really big reach, or who have, come to have a lot of big reach. But most of our clients are not that way. Most of our clients are the people who have amazing results, but they're not very well known outside of their offline reputation. And part of it is because they sort of sometimes turn their nose up at like online or social media or digital. And the example that we always use here is, a couple examples. So first of all, Mother Teresa. Doug, would you say Mother Teresa had big results or small results?
Big results.
Big results. Would you say they were positive or negative?
Positive.
And would you say her reach was really wide and well-known, or not very well-known?
Well-known.
Right?
Wide.
So she had huge positive reach, or results, huge positive results times worldwide reach, which means she has a huge positive reputation. Hitler had huge negative results times worldwide reach. So he has a huge negative reputation. If I ask you, who is Michael Phelps? You probably heard that name before, right? Who's Michael Phelps?
Best Olympic swimmer of all time.
All right. And which country is he from?
USA.
Do you know how many gold medals he's won?
8.
Like 24.
Right? 24. Maybe 8 in the first Olympics. Maybe that's right.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But so here's the thing. If I ask most people who Michael Phelps is, they know. But I say, do you know who Jenny Thompson is? They'll go, I never heard of Jenny Thompson. But Jenny Thompson is the winningest female gold medalist Olympian of all time. She is also from the United States. She is also a swimmer. So when you look at their results, they're almost perfectly comparable at the highest level. Yet for whatever reason, their reach is completely and massively different. And so their reputation is different. That same dynamic is happening with leaders inside of organizations and communities, where it's like they have great results, but they're not that well known because their reach isn't that big. And so you go, well, isn't this vain? Isn't it, arrogant, egotistical? Unfortunately, some of it is that way. But actually, a leader's ability to create impact is directly correlated to the amount of influence they have. And the amount of influence they have is directly correlated to the number of people who know about the work that they have done. And so it's not, the great irony of a personal brand is that personal branding is not about you. It's not about like what you care about in your ego. And it's about the service you can provide, or the value you can provide in the service of other people. And part of that is that your influence grows as your reach grows, which means your ability to create results grows as your reach goes. Look at John Maxwell, right? Like you mentioned John Maxwell, you go, John Maxwell has huge influence because he knows a lot about leadership. A lot of people know a lot about leadership, but a lot of people know about John Maxwell. He has huge reach. And because of that, he has big influence. And because of that influence, he's able to raise a lot of money for charity and change governments around the world and influence churches and develop leaders. And that is a huge part of the formula which is not about vanity, it's about service. And so personal branding is not about self-centeredness, it's about service-centeredness.
Yeah, and this is a leadership podcast. You guys did a huge brand study, which I thought this stat was so good. You found that 82% of Americans believe the companies are more influential when the executives or founders have a public-facing personal brand. Can you just talk more about that? Because you're mentioning all these big names, and there's people who say maybe they don't think it's vain, but hey, I'm leading this company. What's the big deal if I have an online reputation? But clearly, it looks like the data that you came up with shows it matters a lot.
Oh yeah, it's massive. I mean, so the data shows that 72% of older millennials, okay, so those are ages like 35 to 44 right now, say they trust a company or brand more if they recognize they know their executives. But if you look across Americans, 60% of Americans said they are more likely to buy from a company if they recognize the executives and the executives have a personal brand. 59% of Americans said they would be more likely to recommend the company. 58% said they'd be more loyal to the company. Like, they're more likely to trust you, buy from you, work for you, and recommend your company if they recognize the executives of that business. So it has a massive bottom line ROI impact. It has a massive direct application. And it's just about trust, right? It's going, people want to trust the person they work for. They want to trust the person they're buying from. They want to trust the people they're recommending. And look, the biggest companies and the biggest corporate brands in the world often have a founder who is very well known, right? Or an executive. Apple has Steve Jobs. Facebook has Zuckerberg. Amazon has Bezos. Tesla has Elon Musk. Virgin has Richard Branson. Spanx has Sarah Blakely. One of our good friends, Jamie Kern-Lima, has sold her company, It Cosmetics, for $1.2 billion to L'Oreal, right? And then she has become a very well-known personal brand. Like, it's because we trust people. We trust individuals who have a heartbeat and a pulse and a set of experiences and philosophies that we can either relate to or not. And that's why, like, a lot of our clients, Doug, we say at Brand Builders Group, we serve mission-driven messengers. And that's because that AJ and I are just in a season of life where we care more about impact than we do about money. Doesn't mean we don't care about money. We do care about money. We like making money. Money is just not the highest priority in our life. It's a high priority, but it is not the top priority. It's not even close. And so the people we work with tend to be people who share that same value. They go, money is not my primary concern. I need to make money. I'm interested in money. I need to have money to pay for the expenses of building my personal brand, because it costs money, right? To do book launches and manage podcasts and run websites and produce, social media and videos. And it takes money to do that, but they're going, impact is the number one priority for me. Well, a lot of our clients end up finding Brand Builders Group and trusting us if they have that same shared belief or philosophy or system. Whereas other people go, man, I just, show me how to make 6 figures in 60 days. That ain't us, right? Like, we're the people who say, you want to become a household name in like a New York Times bestselling author, which at this point we've now helped 10 people in the last few years. Wow. Doug, we've helped 10 people become a New York Times, Wall Street Journal, or USA Today bestseller. We've had 4 clients that we have helped them create TED Talks that have had more than 1 million views, like gone viral. We have multiple people who have built over 7 figures in revenue within their first 3 years, but we're not the people going, hey, we're going to help you make $100,000 in 30 days. We're the people going, if you want to become a true household name, like with global recognition, instead of it taking you 25 years, we can get you there in maybe 3 to 4, right? Wow. And so it's just, but that is reflective of our heart and our philosophy and who we are. And that's true about every company. And so if you're hiding behind the scenes, then it just makes it hard for people to trust you. We trust the people we see. We trust the people that, think about, this is funny. Think about actors right? We trust actors. That's why people pay them so much money for endorsements. We don't even know what their name is in real life half the time, but we just trust them because we've seen them. If you're walking down a dark alley, okay, if you see your best friend coming, you're not scared at all. But if you're walking down a dark alley and you see another person, but you don't recognize them, I don't care whether it's a man or woman, what their ethnicity is, what their age is. Like, you see somebody walking down an alley and you don't recognize them, you're going to be nervous because you've never seen them before. So that matters tremendously, and it makes a difference on your ability to recruit, to hire, to retain, to manage, to motivate, to inspire, to promote, to and to get people to buy and trust and recommend you. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. So Roy, I think with everything you just went over, I think we're all sold that, hey, we need to take this brand thing seriously, but it could be overwhelming. So, I look at you, best-selling author. So you've written books, Hall of Fame speaker. So speaking is a key element of how you've built your brand. There's podcasting, there's public relations and getting on news stations. There's so much out there, all the social media channels. Right. And then, you see the Gary V's of the world. It's like, okay, do I need to produce 1,000 pieces of content a day just on social media? Where can people start and where can they find the greatest ROI for them?
Yeah. Not with any of that stuff. That's the problem, is that is what people see, and that is exactly what people do, and that is why they fail. And by fail, it's not that they're not smart enough to succeed. It's that they burn out and they can't make any money to sustain it, and they don't have time, and they're like, I can't figure all this out. I can't manage this. Like, how does this all work together? And so they're doing a lot of the right things, but they're doing them in the wrong order. And I'll tell you this. I know this is a lightning round question, but the single greatest piece of personal branding advice that I have ever received, and this is not a Rory Vaden quote. I wish it was. I would like to take credit for this, but I can't. I learned this from a guy named Larry Winget. And Larry said, the goal is to find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Find your uniqueness and exploit it in the service of others. Now, Larry didn't really have a process for teaching people how to do it because he wasn't in the business of doing that. But that he said that in like a speaker training one time that I heard, and I was like, that's so brilliant. And so when we started Brand Builders Group, we created our own proprietary process that we take people through to help them find their uniqueness. The first step is to find their uniqueness, is to figure out what can you do that nobody else can do, or what can you do as good or better than anyone else in the world, or what can you do that is your God-given gift? And so you say, okay, what's the first step of that? The first step of that, Doug, is being able to answer one question with one word. And this is the hardest step. It's like probably one of the hardest steps. And it's the step that 99% of people overlook. And 99% of people cannot answer this question. And if you cannot answer this question with one word, sooner or later, everything is going to break down and you're not going to create the velocity that you need to break through the wall. And so here's the question. What problem do you solve in one word?
Wow.
What problem do you solve in one word? If you can't answer the question in one word, then you are doing too many things. And if you have diluted focus, you get diluted results. And people do not buy solutions as like people. Here's what it is. People buy solutions to problems. We think that people spend money on luxuries. Like when we think of money, we think of, houses and boats and cars and trips and whatever. But the reality is that if there's a recession coming, people will stop buying vacation homes. They'll stop buying nicer cars. They will stop going on trips. But if their kid gets sick, they'll find the money. If the water heater breaks, they'll find the money. If they get a flat tire and they can't get to work, they'll find the money. People always find the money to solve problems. So you have to become an ambassador of the problem. You have to promote the problem. You have to own the problem. Mother Teresa owned the problem of poverty. She dedicated her life to solving that problem. Martin Luther King Jr. dedicated his life to solving the problem of inequality. Dave Ramsey has been saying the same thing for 30 years. And I'm buddies with Dave. I love Dave, but he's been saying the same thing for 3 hours on the radio every day for 30 years. He has more than 1,000 employees. They announced publicly a couple years ago that they do more than 100 million in revenue a year. And his entire personal brand is oriented around solving a one-word problem: debt. Dave Ramsey owns the problem of debt. Brene Brown has become one of the most influential women in the world. She didn't ever want to be a speaker. She wasn't trying to be a best-selling author. Brene Brown was a researcher, and she dedicated her life for decades trying to solve a one-word problem: shame. And Brene Brown owns that problem. You cannot talk about shame without not talking about Brene Brown. You can't talk about getting out of debt without talking about Dave Ramsey. You can't talk about inequality without talking about Martin Luther King Jr. And you can't talk about getting people out of poverty without mentioning Mother Teresa. So the question is, what problem do you solve? And is it crystal clear? Does the world know about it? And they probably don't, because you probably don't. The way that I broke through the wall, my first book, Take the Stairs, was all about helping people overcome procrastination. Right? And then I wrote a TED Talk that went viral called How to Multiply Time. That was the basis of my second book. My second book was all about helping people battle overwhelm and distraction, right? So that was how we broke through the wall. Brand Builders Group, we're breaking through the wall right now. We're becoming really well known because we have all these clients. Well, that's because we're super clear on the one problem we solve for people, which is obscurity. We help people who are the world's best kept secret, which is a horrible thing to be. They're living in obscurity, and we help them create notoriety. We help them to become more well known. And the reason I say it's a bad thing to be is, imagine if you had the cure to cancer and nobody knew about it because you didn't tell anyone because you thought it was vain. Like, you literally spent your life solving a problem for the world that could help millions of people, and then you didn't share it with the world because you couldn't figure out social media, or you didn't have time, or you didn't like technology, or you didn't need extra money, or you didn't care, right? It's like, it's not about arrogance. It's about service. It's about asking yourself the question, what problem am I willing to dedicate my life to? What problem have I dedicated my life to? What is the thing that you look out in the world and you say, I'm not okay with that. I'm not comfortable with that. I don't accept that problem in the world. I am going to do every single thing in my power to study it, understand it, diagnose it, and create a remedy for it so that in my lifetime, fewer people in the world struggle with this problem. You nail that as the first step, everything else will fall into place. If you miss that step, everything else eventually is going to come tumbling down.
That is so good. So that's the foundation. I think for the time that we have left, just talking through next steps again, I really just would want to hear your advice on just different areas that you help people with and that you've done personally. I guess I'll just start with speaking. A lot of aspiring speakers out there. You have a wonderful story. You know, AJ was saying on the podcast, she can't count the number of times you guys spoke for free and all the reps you did that nobody sees, but they see you on stage with John Maxwell, et cetera. What advice do you have for aspiring speakers?
Yeah. So, you know, you mentioned this, like, high level, our process. So Doug, we actually have 14, I guess you would say courses in our curriculum, but we're not really a course company. We're really a one-on-one coaching company, but we have 14 different topics that we teach. And so first you find your uniqueness. That's the first step. Then the second step is we take people through a process that we call captivating content. Captivating content, we then extrapolate your uniqueness into a body of work, into a complete set of knowledge, which often sort of expresses itself in the world as a book, a coaching curriculum, a course, maybe a consulting program. But it's like, we take what's in your head and we turn it into intellectual property, and we help you create original IP and frameworks and thought leadership. Then the third step is we call it world-class presentation craft. So we put you through this a very advanced speaker training of the things that I learned in my journey to the World Championship of Public Speaking. And we teach the psychology of laughter and how to tell stories and how to use the stage and how to gracefully make an offer from stage and like all these technical skills. And I would say to your question, your presentation is your first and best marketing asset. It is to this day the number one way that we get customers. We get very few customers from people searching on Google, coming to our website, reading the stuff, and then opting in. You know where we'll get customers from? Somebody's going to listen to this podcast. They're going to go, this is what I've been looking for. They're going to go to freecall.roryvaden.com. They're going to request a call with someone on our team. We're going to do a free call, and some number of those people are going to end up being a perfect fit for what we do. And we're going to work together for years, and they're going to become the next viral TED Talk, the next best-selling author, the next whatever, because they heard this presentation, right? They heard this interview. The fastest way to take somebody from a complete and total stranger to a lifelong fan is an amazing 1-hour presentation. And this is how we built our whole career, right? Like I remember I spoke 304 times for free before I ever got paid. 304. That was when I was on my journey to the World Championship of Public Speaking, which I did twice for Toastmasters. I made it to the top 10 in the world twice. And then we built our whole first company by going out and speaking for free. And we would go speak for free at companies, small companies, local offices, 5 or 10 people. We'd go speak for free for an hour. We'd give people a chance to sample our content, and then at the end, we'd show them how to sign up and come to one of our events or enroll in our coaching program. Today at Brand Builders Group, we do podcasts. We go speak for free. We have loads of free training on our website. All of them are just basically 1-hour presentations that people go watch, and at the end, they go, this was incredible. They request a call, and they come, and then, you know, we've got different levels of programs, but here's the thing. You don't grow a personal brand from social media. Like everyone thinks, oh, it's social media. Like I got to go viral. The number one fastest way to get customers is through referrals. The second fastest way is through presentations. It doesn't mean you shouldn't learn how to do social media and digital marketing and online. It just means that's not the fastest path to cash. The fastest path to cash is human relationships. It's people, right? It's let's have an encounter. The reason why social media can work is because if somebody watches 60 of your 1-minute clips, they're going to trust you. But the algorithm, it's going to take them a long time before they see 60 1-minute clips because of the algorithm. And so it's going to take forever versus you get them in a room with you or on a webinar with you and they have this accelerated 1-hour experience. They might be willing to spend $10, $20, $50, $100,000 with you after 1 hour because they've had a chance to experience what you do. And if it's the right time in their life for what you do and you have what they need, you have the solution to their problem, they'll gladly invest the money if they trust you and it's the right time for them. And so speaking is just, it is where it's at. And it doesn't have to be on stage in front of thousands of people, John Maxwell. It could be 3 people at the back of a Perkins restaurant. It could be a small workshop. And one other thing on this, Doug, one of the things that we tell our clients all the time is we say, think of your online audience as an offline room. Think of your online audience as an offline room. So here's what I mean by that. Let's say you do post a video on YouTube, right? A video on YouTube is a pretty good marketing tool if it's a long form video, because if somebody watches it, it's the second best thing to like experiencing you in real life. So the problem is if you post a video on YouTube and you get 8 views or you get 14 views, you're probably going to look at that and go, oh, what a waste of time. Like, I can't believe I just posted this video to see 14 views. And that's because you're comparing yourself to everyone else, right? And you're going, well, you know, John Maxwell posts a video and he gets 1 million views, right? Why am I wasting my time for 14 views? Yet, if I told you right now that you could walk outside and go next door and there's a room full of 14 people sitting there waiting to hear from you, and that you're going to have 1 hour to stand up in front of 14 people and impart some wisdom that could make a difference in their life, most of us would get pretty fired up about that.
Right.
If it was 50 people, we'd probably be like really fired up. If it was 100 people, we'd be pretty nervous. But we see 100 views online and we go, eh. Meanwhile, 25 people in real life is all you need to generate. I mean, you get 25 people to pay you $1,000 a month to coach with you. You're making $25,000 a month. That's probably more than most people are making in their career. This is the law of AJ Vaden. This is a shout out to my wife, right? He says, you don't need millions of followers to make millions of dollars. You need a few people to trust you in a very deep, meaningful way.
That's so good. Out of curiosity there on the making millions of dollars or whatever. So you built multiple, 6 to 8 figure businesses. What advice just do you have for building a business? Clearly you've been successful and demonstrated that. What's been some of the keys to doing that?
It's interesting. Our brand builder journey that we take personal brands is exclusively for personal brands. So we don't work with companies. We only work with individual executives or the founder or, the author. Like we only work with like individual faces, but the process of building a great company is the same. We easily could apply the same issue for a company. What problem do you solve? Like if you're not clear about that, you're going to do a bunch of different things and you're going to launch a bunch of different products. And you don't need a bunch of products. You don't need multiple revenue streams. Like this is some of the horrible advice. Like you got to have multiple revenue streams. No, you don't. If you are a small business owner and you have multiple revenue streams, I promise you are diluting your resources across many different things. What you need is one really freaking amazing revenue stream. That's what you need. You need one SKU that sells really, really well. You need one source of income that will change your life. But people they're chasing like these ideals that are not really practical. So I would say focus, right? Like focus, find your uniqueness, figure out what is the one thing you can do that nobody else can do, and do that better than anybody else, and then go all in on that. And I'll give you the hint. All right. So I'll tell you practically, right? So in our first course, which is called Finding Your Brand DNA, which is most of what we've been talking about here, we have this sort of 6-part framework we take people through to help them find their uniqueness. Well, that's a 2-day experience. Each of our 14 programs is a different 2-day experience. So we obviously don't have 2 days right here, Doug, but I'll tell you the secret, which is the what we train our strategists to do. So, we have dozens of strategists in our company because they're doing most of the coaching. We have like 588 coaching clients right now. So we got a lot of people we're working with. And so our team is working with them. And so when we're training our strategists, this is what we figured out. And this is what we know today, Doug, that we did not know when we started this company in 2018. Here's what we've realized. You are most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. You are always most powerfully positioned to serve the person you once were. If there's a shortcut, if there's a faster path, it is by realizing that you are going to make the most impact and thereby the most money and create thereby the most natural traction by looking back and figuring out what problem have you solved? What challenge have you conquered? What setback have you survived? What obstacle have you overcome? You're most equipped to help other people on that exact same journey. And that's where you should start. Even if it's not where you want to be long-term, it's where you're most powerfully positioned to serve. And so that is where you start. And if you start there, you will get traction because you can serve those people in a very deep, meaningful way. And then out of that will give life to like the rest of the business.
Yeah, I want to talk about a few other areas, but obviously you've been talking a ton about brand builders. I think everyone probably listening is interested. You mentioned, the free call they can get. What are the next steps if people are listening to this and saying, "Hey, I need to push pause on this and go do that"? What can they do?
Totally. Thanks, Doug. Yeah, I mean, we do one-on-one coaching, right? We're one-on-one training. Like we are a human-based business. Like we want to know your face and see you at our events. And so if you go to freecall.roryvaden.com, you can just fill out a little form and request a call, and then we'll guide you from there, right? So you just kind of follow the path. And that's where, that's why I would say, if you're not ready to request a call, then just go to roryvadenblog.com, and you can start watching a bunch of our free trainings, and you can check out, learn more there, and then just see if you're ready. But I talk about the 4 levels of influence on my blog, and that's like the main thing that I'm talking about. So you can, there's loads of free content there.
Love that. And we'll include links to all of that in the show notes as well. Talk to us about writing a book. So it was one of the first things you did. So what do aspiring authors need to know from Rory Vaden?
Well, it wasn't one of the first things I did. It was one of the first things I became known for, but it was years before. And that's what you got to understand. That's this whole process, right? So captivating content, which I said earlier, that's where we help people sort of extrapolate their ideas into what would be a book. But, a book should be a conclusion, not a hypothesis. A book should be a conclusion, not a hypothesis. So that means that you should have tested out those frameworks on real life people and sharpened them before you publish it as a book. For example, we haven't written a book since we started Brand Builders Group. Why? Because we have been wrestling with these ideas, practicing them, shaping them, sharpening them, tightening them. And so when our book comes out in a couple of years, it's going to crush. We know it's going to crush. Why? Because we've already tested it on 1,000 people and we've dialed it in. It's a conclusion, not a hypothesis. And so if you're early in your journey, there's some value to writing a book, kind of early on, just because it gives you some credibility and getting that going. But when you're looking at like becoming a New York Times bestseller and doing everything it takes there, it's like you want that content to be solid and tight and tested. And so, you really want to be clear on the problem it solves, the methodology, the frameworks, the diagrams, the IP, the charts, the tables, and that you have case studies and stories of real clients that you can share, right? Like it matters when we helped Ed Milet sell 117,000 copies of his book, right? We helped Eric Thomas hit the New York Times. Like, yeah, we played a part, and Lewis is very generous in giving us credit, but like we played a part in Lewis growing his podcast from 30 million downloads to 500 million downloads, and then selling it to Sirius XM 4 years later for millions and millions of dollars. Like we've had 4 clients that we've helped them go viral with their TED Talks. Like it matters quite a bit, and it gives you confidence that what you're doing actually works because you've really tested it, and you're teaching from a place of like, I've been there and I've done it. And so I think there's, that's the real thing, is to really thoroughly kind of test it. And the other thing of what you need to know about, bestseller lists and all this stuff. So bestseller launch plan is one of our 14 courses. It's later in the training, but the number one thing you need to know about becoming a best-selling author, and this is a lesson that I learned from Robert Kiyosaki, is it's not called New York Times best writing author. It's New York Times best-selling author. The bestsellers list are entirely dependent upon how many people are buying your book, which is why you could write the world's greatest book, but if you don't have reach, you're not going to become a best-selling author. Meanwhile, if you're Kim Kardashian, you can publish a book full of second-rate selfies that were not good enough to be on her Instagram profile, and you'll sell hundreds of thousands of copies of that book because you have a lot of reach. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. Who is to say? But that is how it is. So you got to build an audience for the book before you build the book, if it's really the book.
Well, Rory, you've added massive value to me today in our audience. Is there anything, with the few minutes that we have left, is there anything you want to talk about that we haven't discussed?
Well, thanks, man. I just, a couple things. First of all, another Brand Builders Group mantra here is save the best for first. Save the best for first. Give away the best stuff you can as fast as you can, because everyone is afraid of giving away too much, right? And that's why if you go to roryvadenblog.com, we're just giving away like a master's degree and stuff. And then our hope is that at some point, between hearing a podcast or listening to the blog or following our podcast, they're going to go, man, I want to request a call. And they go to freecall.roryvaden.com. They request a call, and then there's enough trust. And so trust precedes the transaction. Trust precedes the transaction. People are afraid of, well, if I give away all my secrets, then what is someone going to pay me for? That's the wrong way of thinking. That's a scarcity mindset. Giving away information is not the risk. One reason why is people don't pay for information. People pay for organization and application. People don't pay for information. They pay for organization and application. So you don't really need to be worried about it. You can teach everything you know for free. That's not what people are really paying for. They're paying for a process that will help them apply what you know to their own life and make it become real. That's what they're really after. So you can teach everything you know for free and still charge money because what you're charging for is a application. But like, save the best for first, give it away, earn trust, right? Like, quit being worried about how many followers do I have and be more concerned about how much trust do I have with the followers that I have. Quit worrying about how much money did I make from my launch and be more focused on going, how can I serve the few customers I have in a deeper way? How can I help my customers succeed faster? What do my customers need to get the next level of results in a more tangible and practical way? And when you become consumed with this serving and going, what happens is your customer force becomes your sales force, right? Like, Doug hears me in an audience one day, starts to follow, and then one day Doug builds this big old podcast and he says, hey, Rory, will you come on my podcast? And he's helping me spread the message in a much faster way. That happens because you're giving first. And it's sort of like you're asking people to pay in rears. It's like they're paying after they've received value versus paying in forwards, which is you pay and then you get value. So we're using all the tools of the day, podcasting, social media, YouTube, like PR, to give value first, like dump as much as you can and over deliver so that people go, man, these people really know what they're talking about. I want to talk to them. And then, they might sign up. They might not. But the thing of it is that's crazy is even if they don't buy from you, you change their life. Like, even if you don't make money, you made an impact. And this is the part that drives me crazy, Doug, is like people go, well, I don't want to do all that stuff. I don't know if it works. What do you mean you don't know if it works? I thought you said you wanted to change lives. You can change lives without making money. You can reach people all around the globe with one button push on your phone. What do you mean it didn't work? If the real mission was making an impact, you can do that whether people pay you for it or not. So if you stay focused on making an impact, making a difference, focus on creating fans, focus on adding value, you will make customers, you will make money, you will get book deals, you will get to speak, you will, like, all of that will come as a byproduct, but you have to stay focused on the mission first. And that's just, anyways, that's what we're really passionate about. That's how we do it.
This was phenomenal. Thank you for giving us your best first. So much to take away. And again, I hope you all take advantage of all that Rory offers. And again, we'll include links to all of that in the show notes. So Rory, thanks again. You and your wife are lovely people and making a huge impact in the world. So thank you for all that you guys do. It really is making a difference.
Well, my pleasure, Doug. I'm proud of you. It's cool what you've got going on here, man. And just God bless you. It's great to see you.
You too. Thanks.